Tip Wednesday again. It is December, and we're gonna go over some really crazy stuff. I'm Lanell.
Kevin?
Today we're gonna work on the overhead squat, everyone's favorite but not favorite movement. We're gonna do a two-part series. So we're gonna do today. It's gonna be all about mobility and how to make sure you are able to get into the proper positions for the overhead squat. And next week we're gonna go into how to strengthen the overhead squat, the muscles involved, certain exercises that you can do, and so forth. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to go over the squat. I'm going to show you some key things that you need to see. Then we're going to go over some specific areas that you can mobilize, get more flexible in order to be able to perform a proper overhead squat. Cool? Okay, so that'll be our first stage. All right, so the overhead squat. Some key things that we're looking for. We want our hands to be pretty wide. So if you are to hold it at your hip crease, and just get your hands as wide as possible. That should be your grip right there. We don't want it any wider because that's going to put a lot of stress on our wrist, and we don't want it any narrower because that's actually going to put a lot more stress on your mid-back, your thoracic spine. So Kevin here has done a great job. He's got it right at his hip crease. His hands are wide enough, and now all he's going to do is he's going to bring the bar overhead. Okay? His feet are a little bit wider than hip width apart. And his toes are slightly turned out just to give him some mobility in his hips. As he goes down, his knees are going to go track over his toes, and he's going to keep the bar pushed up. Okay? What he's trying to do here is make sure his armpits are turned outward, and he is trying to bend the bar apart. You may have heard that you want to shrug your shoulders to shrug your traps to your shoulders, and actually what you want to do is the opposite. You want to keep your shoulders depressed. You want to think about pulling the bar apart, trying to bend it, and you want to turn your armpits out to the side. Cool. So he's going to do another one. Chest is going to stay up tall. His knees are going to track over his toes. The bar is going to stay right over his ears, and it's going to be right there. First mobility trick is for the calves. Now, the calves are actually made up of two muscles. You have your gastrocnemius, which is your big, thick muscles. They're right here. Okay, big, thick muscles right here. And right under there, you have a thin sheet of muscle called the soleus. Now, the difference between the two muscles is that the gastrocnemius will actually work when your leg is straight, and your soleus will work when your leg is bent, when your knee is bent. So we want to work on a flexible soleus more than a flexible gastrocnemius. So what Kevin's going to do is he's going to do a box stretch. He's going to take a kettlebell. He's going to put his foot up on a box, so make sure that the knee is higher than the hip. And he's going to put a kettlebell on top of his knee to add a little bit of extra resistance to be able to push the knee forward. Okay? Now, weighted flexibility is a great way to kind of increase your flexibility. You're looking to increase the range of motion, and that added resistance, added assistance is actually going to help you out tremendously. I would recommend holding this stretch for at least 90 seconds, if not more, and doing this once to twice a week as you see fit. So the second stretch for the soleus is actually going to be using a barbell. So you can take a barbell and you can load it up as heavy as you want to. What Kevin is going to do, he's going to take the barbell with a clean grip. So the grip is going to be shoulder width apart. He's going to squat down and put the bar right behind his knees, and he's going to use the bar to push his knees forward and get some assistance to help him push his knees over his toes. Okay? That's all he's going to do. The more weight you use, the better the stretch. However, don't go so crazy that you can't get out of the stance. Make sure that you have enough assistance to be able to push the knees forward, and just hang out there for about 90 seconds to 2 minutes. All right, so now we get to the upper body and the shoulder region. So when we are in our overhead squat, what we want to look at is being able to have a very limber, mobile shoulder joint. So there are some muscles in there that you may not think of that need to be released. One of them is the subscapularis, which is actually right underneath your scapula. If Kevin puts his shoulder up, he goes up high, so your subscapularis is here, and it will go all the way in to the back, and it just lays right on the scapula. It's not an easy muscle to get to, but as we sit at our desk all day, as we are typing all day, as we're hunched over, that subscapularis gets shorter and tighter and creates those rounded shoulders. The next muscle that you're going to work on is the teres major, which is actually very close to the subscapularis. It's another muscle that's similar to your rotator cuff, and that muscle actually will run from here and will run from the scapula, outside of the scapula, and down into the ribs. Okay, so that muscle will get tight as well. So we're going to release both of those, as well as the pec, and a very creative stretch. So the first stretch he's going to do, first release that he's going to do, he's going to take a peanut. He's going to have his hand right up against the wall, and he's going to put it right between his shoulder blade and his back. Guy is going to sit there and he's going to try to roll up and down. You may see his face go a little crazy. That's because this muscle is very tender. There's a lot of nerves that are up in there, and all you're trying to do is release this. Anywhere between 30 seconds and a minute. You don't need to go any longer. All you're looking to do is get that muscle to just release, and that's what you're going to do. Fantastic. The next muscle is going to be a little bit lower. We're still going to take that peanut, and we're actually going to drop down from the armpit down to about the bottom of the scapula, and we're going to be rolling in right there. Okay? Yeah, right there. So right around the ribs, and you'll feel that muscle. It'll be very tender because we're right around the ribs, so you'll feel like you're on bone, but that is another muscle that needs to be released. Good. And finally, we got the pec minor. So here's what you want to do. You're going to put your hand behind your back. Okay, so you're going to actually look like a chicken wing. You are going to put the ball right on your pec, and you're going to press your pec up against the wall with the peanut, and then roll right around your chest. The more you're able to pull your elbow back, the harder the stretch will be, the more effective the stretch will be. Okay, and all you're trying to do is just release that muscle. You'll feel some nice tight knots, and you'll be able to get it in. That's very nice. That is the mobilization for the overhead squat. I hope you enjoy. Do this, like I said, once to twice a week. And next week, we're coming with how to strengthen the overhead squat to be able to PR in that. Peace.